Okay, perfect. All right. So again, hi everyone. Welcome to this lesson on English tenses in the indicative mood. So remember, at one point, if for those of you who didn't come to any of my previous lessons, we talked about the subjunctive mood in like two lessons ago. So now we're going to talk about English tenses in the indicative mood. So in the indicative mood, we have three tenses. We have a present tense, a past tense, and a future tense. So the present tense. So with the present tense, we have, oh wait, no, first I should explain the different aspects here. So we have three tenses, right? And we also have four aspects that we can combine with any of these tenses. Simple, simple progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. And the same goes for the past and the future. So instead of just throwing these at you all at once, I'm just going to make this really easy. So for now, we're just going to ignore the progressive aspect. We're just going to ignore it and focus just on the simple and perfect aspects. The progressive won't make much sense to you until you get the other two down. So let's just go ahead and start doing that.
By progressive, you mean continuous?
Yeah, continuous or progressive, same thing. I just choose to call it progressive here because I think that's a better name for it, but you can also call it simple or perfect continuous.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's start with the present tense. Let's start with this present tense. So let's talk about the present simple. So the present simple would be something like, let me provide an example. Let me just say I work at the library. Okay, so this should be. Okay. How do I get this away? Let's get that away. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. Okay. So we have the present simple here. Work. So, well, first I should, no, I'll worry about that later. So we use the present simple when we want to talk about things that are habitual, things that are, or, things that are true in the present. Like, for example, I work at the library on Mondays. This is a habitual action. Like as a habit, I work at the library on Mondays. This is something that is always true, something that I'm always doing. I work at the library on Mondays. So that's what the simple aspect does. It just refers to one single event. Like say we have a timeline. The simple aspect is just like one single event on a timeline, like that. But in the case of the present simple, it's just this single line in the present. And another example would be, let's say it rains all the time in this city. It rains all the time in this city. That's also present simple, right? Because I really should have, well, that's okay. This is also present simple because it talks about something that is, again, either habitual or true all the time in the present, because it does rain all the time in this city. And it's kind of confusing now, but once we talk about the progressive or continuous aspect, then you'll start seeing exactly what this is supposed to mean. But like say, the meteor passes by Earth every 10 years. Yeah, see, that's a good example. That's simple present. because again, it's something that's habitual in the present. Or you could say, I go to the movies with my friends often. You could also say that. Here, let me type that. That's also something. I often go to the movies with my friends. It's something that is, of course, in the present, as in now. And it's the present simple because, well, there's no ing verb or perfect like have done or whatever, have gone or whatever. So this is just the present simple. But the present perfect doesn't work like that. And you'll see why in a moment. So with the, wow, okay. So with the present perfect, let me draw a timeline first. So we have a timeline here. I should probably explain the difference between the simple and perfect aspects first. So as I said, the simple aspect is it just tends to be a single line on the timeline, right? This is what we call the simple aspect. It just refers to an action that was just done once or whatever. Or it can be combined with another adverb like often to show repeated instances of actions occurring once. But the perfect aspect is different. When we talk about the perfect aspect, it's like this. It starts from.
Before you continue, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the present simple could also be used for events that are going to take place in the future, right? So for example, tomorrow I wake up at 6, for instance. Is that right?
Actually, yes, that's a good point. I completely forgot to mention that. Let me talk about that for a moment. That's actually a good point. Thank you for bringing it up. So what he's talking about is this. Let's say we have an event like this. Tomorrow, my plane leaves at 6 p.m. Let's say that. The present simple can also be used to talk about events in the future. It's not the future tense, but it's pointing to the future here. So you could say it like this. Tomorrow my plane leaves at 6 p.m. So that's the use of the present simple to talk about the future. Or as to provide an example that someone just offered. Okay, like, or say tomorrow I wake up at 6. Or let's say 5. Tomorrow I wake up at 5 p.m. That can also be a use of the present simple to point to the future. Okay, so that's a good point to bring up. But I mean, here, let me bring those back. I forgot to mention something. So, see, here's the thing. You can actually use the simple future here or future simple in these events. For these events, you could say that. You could say tomorrow my plane will leave at 6 p.m. You could say that. That would be just as valid. But see here, it's actually more common to use the present tense, the simple present. It's actually more common to do it that way. But tomorrow I will wake up at 5 p.m. Now for the second example, you're likely to hear either, but for the first example, oops, you're probably going to hear the present simple more often. But again, I'm just pointing out that in some cases, you can actually use the present simple to point to the future. So again, so the present simple and future simple are actually both valid in these examples. It just depends on which one you want to use, but sometimes one is more common than the other. There's no hard, fast rule for this. It's just something you have to pick up over time, but at least be aware that there are some instances where either could work. So let's see, let's talk about the present perfect. So we had a timeline here. let's say that this is a timeline. Let's say that this here is the present. This marks the present as of now, the present time. The past perfect, no, I'm sorry, present perfect, works like this. Instead of taking place at just one single point in time, like the present simple, we start at some point in the past and work our way to the present. So it's essentially like one action that started in the past and led right up to the present, or has some sort of relevance to the present even. So that's how the present perfect works. And that's what the perfect aspect does. It starts at one point in time and leads up to another point in time. So that's the perfect aspect. So let's provide an example of the present perfect. Okay, so an example. I've finished my homework. Or actually, no. Let me provide a different example. Let's say this. I have been, no. Okay, no. Let me try something else. I have waited. Yeah, let's say this. I have waited in the hotel lobby for 3 hours. Okay, so here we have I have waited. I have waited. So again, this is present perfect. I should have probably explained how to conjugate these. Let me do that really fast. So for the present simple, you have am, is, are, was, whoops. I am, he, she, it is, we, you, they are. And then that's for the verb to be. And let's say for the verb, oops. For the verb, let's have a regular verb this time. To drink. It's like I drink, he, she, it drinks, we, you, they drink. So you can see here that for the verb be is much more regular than the verb to drink, because that the most commonly used verbs in language tend to be the most irregular. So in this case, we have I am, he, she, it is, we, you, they are. And you is the same for both the singular and the plural, so I'm not going to put you all there. It's just redundant to me. But here we just have drink, drink, and drinks. So notice that for the present simple, you have that extra S for the third person singular. So he, she, it. So that's when you change it. That's when you add an S. But other than that, you just use the base form of the verb for everything else. But for be, you have special conjugations because be is a special verb. So that's how you conjugate for the present simple. For the present perfect, it's really easy. You just have, like for example, let's say wait, to wait. You just have waited and has waited. It's that simple. And again, it's the same thing. For has waited, it would be he, she, it has waited. But for everyone else, it's just I, you, what else? We, they. In this case, I and you, we, and they had the same conjugation. So that's for the indicative. For the present perfect, so it's just have for everyone else, but he, she, it just has. So just remember that. And someone actually brought up a good point in the chat. You could actually use the present simple here, but I want to actually, no, now that I think about it, this is not a good example because I want to show an example that differs from the present simple. Let me not use that. Sorry. Okay. I should have just gone with my original example. Let's say this. I have just seen the film. Yeah, let's do that. That'll just work. Let's do this. I have just seen the film. So here we have the present perfect. I have just seen. So here, you're probably wondering what the difference is between this and this. I just saw the film. People often wonder, okay, what's the difference between the past simple and the present perfect? Well, here's what we have. The present perfect starts at one point. Remember, it starts at one point right here and goes up to another point. Whereas the past simple is just like, if I erase this, just a single point in the past. So it's just like this. So that's the difference. So here we have, I have just seen the film. Oops. Okay. I have just seen the film. So this implies that our action of seeing the film started at this point and led right up to the present. So in a way, the present perfect makes a past action more relevant to the present. It can also be used for actions that lead up to the present. So that's really the difference here between the present perfect and the past simple. Whereas the past simple just talks about things that happened at one single point in time, because again, that's what the single aspect does. So to provide an example of how the past simple works and how it cannot be used the same way as the present perfect, I saw the film yesterday. I saw the film yesterday. So here we have the past simple saw. And as for conjugating the past simple, there are just in the past, for the past simple, every verb has the same conjugation except for be, because in be it's I, he, she, it was for the verb to be. Let me move that out of the way for a moment. Move this, move this. Okay, and this. Okay, so we have this. And then for the verb to be, for the past simple. And then we have we, you, they, were. So you can see that this is how you conjugate for the verb to be. I, he, she, it was, we, you, they were. And for another verb, but for every other verb, and I'm not joking, this is like for every single verb out there except for the verb to be. Like let's say to eat. I, he, she, you know what? It's just the same verb all around, ate. It's just ate. So it doesn't matter if it's I, you, he, she, etc. It's all just ate. So every person gets the same conjugation for every verb except for the verb to be. To be is a special case. But for every other verb, everyone gets the same conjugation in the past. So I ate, you ate, he, she, it ate, we ate, you ate, they ate. It's all the same. So that's how you conjugate that. But of course, here ate is irregular compared to, say, dance. So dance in the past would become, in the present would become danced in the past. So you can see that we have a little d here, an extra d, or in some cases ed, like bust would become busted. So, and there's really no logic to these regular and irregular conjugations. It's just something you'll have to pick up, because I can't give you a hard, fast rule for them. Some verbs are regular, some are not. You just have to learn them. But going back to what I said earlier, so the past simple is you, oh, I'm sorry. You raised your hand? Provide an example of the to be conjugation. Okay, so let me see. I'm sorry if this seems a bit disorganized. Okay, so to be would be I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, they are. Let me move that up a bit. Let me change this. Move that up. Move that up. And just put that there. This here, this here, this here, this here. So let's just erase all this for now. Okay. Smooth that. Okay. So how you conjugate it in the present, let me just add the you all. Okay. So to conjugate in the to be in the present, it's I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you all are, and they are. For the past, it's, oops. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing that. Let me do it this way. For the past, it would be I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, you all were, and they were. So that's how you would conjugate the verb to be in both the present and the past. So again, to be is a special case where you actually do conjugate based on person in the past tense. Was for this, were for this, was for this, were for this, were for this, and were for this. But for the present, it's also a special case. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, and they are. And it actually used to be like this in English. We used to have even more conjugation where the first, like the singular forms, you know, I, you, he, she, it, all had their special conjugations, but the plural forms had the same conjugation. And you can see some of that here in English too. I am, you are, he, she, it is, but the rest are just the same. But for the but again, we don't really have special conjugations anymore, other than these. These are again special cases. But for a regular verb, like say, I'm trying to think, to just a completely regular verb, close, to close. It would be I close, you close, he, she, it closes, we close, you all close, they close. And again, we have a special case here where only this form changes for he, she, and it. So don't forget that ending, because if you mess up that ending, that will make you sound non-native. So, but for the past, it would be I closed. Notice how there's a D there. I closed, you closed. And it's really just the same everywhere, but I'll type it all out anyway. And the future tense is just ridiculously easy to conjugate. you just put will in front of the verb, but I'll show you that in a moment. And if you're wondering why I'm putting the all in parentheses here, technically in English, you and you are the same in both singular and plural, as I said earlier, but sometimes people add an all to the you, to you right here when they want to make it plural, just to make it less confusing. But, you can technically tell from context, at least sometimes, but sometimes you might have to use all to tell the difference, but just for your reference. But anyway, as I said, every verb has the same conjugation in the past. So every person has the same conjugation in the past tense, except for the verb to be, for was and were. That's the special case. But for every other verb, it's all the same. So as you can see, conjugation in English is really easy. For the present simple, you just stick to the same form as this here in the infinitive, which is the to close, that's an infinitive. So you just match the verb to the verb after the word to. So since it's to close, the form you use here for I is close. So I close, you close, and you keep going. But for the he, she, it form, it's closes. So you have to add that S, or sometimes ES if the verb ends the consonant, like say to tax someone, right? It would be he, she, it taxes, and not tax. So not tax, taxes. Unless it were subjunctive, then that would make sense. But in the indicative, it's taxes. So don't forget that ES ending. So that's how to conjugate verbs in both the present and past. And for the future, you just add will in front of every verb. It's really easy. So everyone is will close. This is like every conjugation. Will close. Like will close, or will eat, or even will be. Even be is not different here. Every conjugation in the future tense is the same, which is why some people say it's not a future tense. Well, actually, no, that's not why. Some people will say that we don't have a future tense because we actually use will as a separate word instead of, attaching a suffix to the end of the verb, like for the present and the past. But, it really, technically, we don't have a future tense, but we do have an equivalent, if that makes sense. But, to make things simpler, I'll just call it a future tense. So it's a grammatical tense in the sense, but not a morphological tense, because we don't have an affix at the end like that. We just use will. But again, this is really just semantics, so I'm just going to call it a future tense to make things easier. But that's how you conjugate for every single for past, present, and future. But for the progressive forms, I'll show you that later, because again, I'm not going to focus on them right now. So again, going back to the present and past simple. So present perfect versus past simple. Everyone wants to know what the difference is. It's better I just show you examples. So here's an example where both could work, right? So I have just seen the film. That's our example from before. Versus I just saw the film. So in this case, both could work. The only difference is that the first one makes your action of seeing the film more present, like more related to the present. So it's like you started watching the film at some point in the past and then it led up to the present. Compared to I just saw the film, which is like, you did it, and it's entirely in the past. So that's the difference here. The past simple is for actions that are entirely in the past, but the present perfect is for actions that start in the past, but led up to the present. Let me actually type that down for your reference. And someone just raised his hand. No, would eat is conditional, and I'll get to that in later. But the conditional mood I'll probably have to cover in a separate video because it's it, it's a rather messy mood. So I'm not going to worry about it right now, but I'll briefly cover it later. Okay, so the present perfect, actions that started in the past and led up to the present. Past simple, actions that started in the past and stayed in the past. So they have no connection to the present. Oops, I can't type today. Okay. And for those of you who have questions, I'll pause for a moment to give you guys some time to ask questions. But let me just finish making this point now, and then you can ask questions. But if you're in the chat, you can ask questions at any time. Let's see. So for the present perfect, actions start in the past and lead up to the present. For the past simple, actions start in the past and stay in the past. Like they have no connection to the present, which is why you can have a sentence like this. Now, again, going back to this, here we have two valid examples. The only difference is that the time frame changes. The first one says, I started watching the film in the past and I just finished now, in the present. Whereas the second one just says, I saw the film in the past, but it has no connection to the present. Like, I just watched it entirely in the past. So this is why, for a context like this, only one makes sense. Now, natives will easily see that the second one just flat out doesn't work. But non-natives will be wondering why. Well, as I said, the present perfect is for actions that started in the past and led up to the present. But yesterday, the problem with the adverb yesterday here, the problem with this word here is that it's for actions that took place, entirely in the past. So you can't use it for the present perfect. So you can't say something like, I've seen that movie yesterday, because this has no connection to the present, and thus it does not warrant the present perfect. Yesterday does not warrant the present perfect. Not to say that all adverbs are like this. There are some adverbs that can work with either one. But for yesterday, you cannot use it with the present perfect, because yesterday implies an action that took place entirely in the past. So you can't say, I've seen that movie yesterday, just I saw that movie yesterday. And there are other contexts where you have things like this. Like, say, for example, I was born in 1989. I was not actually born in 1989. This is just an example. You can't say, I've been born in 1989. This just doesn't work. Because again, you're talking about something that took place entirely in the past and has no connection to the present. So I was born in 1989 works, but not I've been born in 1989. And again, this adverb phrase right here tells us that this took place entirely in the past. So the present perfect doesn't work. And if you're wondering for a context where only the present perfect would work, but the past simple wouldn't work, well, there is actually one. So here's an example where the present perfect would work, but the past simple wouldn't work at all. So I've been here since 8 a.m. versus I was here since 8 a.m. See, the since here, when we use since here, we're talking about something that started at some point in the past and led up to another point in the timeline. So we often use since for actions that start in the past and lead up to the present, which is why this here doesn't work. I was here since 8 a.m. That doesn't work because since implies, it doesn't imply one point in time. It implies a block of time. So you have an action that started in the past, but led up to the present here. And we often use since with I've been. Now, whatever comes after since can be present perfect or past simple. Like, for example, so actually, no. Actually, I think after since, you'd probably just use the past perfect. No, sorry, past simple. I've been upset. So have been upset, or let's just say been, or let me just, actually, let me keep that in there. Okay, ever since they canceled my favorite TV show. Actually, no, after the since, you would use the present simple, sorry, past simple. Using the present perfect wouldn't sound right here. So this part here before since would be in the present perfect, but this, or ever since I should say, but this part here after since wouldn't make any, would call for the past simple. Because say, it's like this, you have a timeline. Oops. And let's say that, let me erase this. Let's say that you have, this point here is when they canceled your show, right? This point right here, they canceled your show. So let's say show canceled. And we have, okay, so present time. So this is like the present, like right now. So your show was canceled here, right? And ever since that point, you have felt upset. So do you see how the present perfect starts at one point in the past and leads right up to the present? Because from that point that the show was canceled, which would be the past simple, because again, it's just one point in time here, you've been feeling, you felt upset all the way up to the present. So that's the difference between the past simple and the present perfect. And I know I talked a lot. So does anyone have any questions before I continue to the past perfect? Okay, so if no one has any questions, I will just go right on to the past perfect. But before I do the past perfect, oh, hold on. Oh, you understood? Okay, good. And if it's still confusing to you, oh crap. If it's still confusing, why does it keep doing that? If it's still confusing to you, oh, you know what? I don't care. Okay. If it's still confusing to you, you know, you just keep listening to English. Let me type this now. If any of this is still confusing to you, just keep listening to English that you can understand. And I say this because you'd be surprised, but actually listening to the language and context will help you understand why there are certain aspects used in certain situations. Like take, for example, the Spanish, you know, the contrast between the preterite and the imperfect, right? People often struggle with that, but see, the thing is that if you just stop worrying about the rules so much and just listen to Spanish, you'll start seeing why the preterite is used in some aspects and the imperfect, sorry, is used in other aspects. So what I'm saying is this: stop relying on rules. Stop. Just stop. Rely on context to help you understand the difference. So, no rules. No rules, just context. Context is key here. Once you start learning from the context, you'll start seeing, oh, okay, that's why they used it here. Or for the preterite, the imperfect, past perfect, anything like that. So again, context is important. Yeah, it's basically just getting a feel for the language. That's a good question. It's just getting a feel for the language. Because again, I can't explain every single aspect perfectly. There are just some things that I just feel are right and that aren't right. That's just how I am as a native. And for non-natives, this is the case too. Over time, you'll just start getting a feel for the language and you just know why something is right. You won't get it perfectly, not as perfectly as a native, but you can still get very, 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 very close. So it's again, it's just a matter of just exposing yourself to the language. Is it recommendable to watch videos in English with subtitles on? I wouldn't recommend it. You can, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's better than just watching in your um, native language and having subtitles in the opposite language. But to me, it's best to just rely on audio because of audio only, because if you focus on the subtitles, you'll just be focusing too much on reading instead of just listening. Although it can help you understand the words more, honestly, it's better that you just listen to audio that isn't too fast so that you could just focus on processing the sounds and not reading the words. That just gets in the way of that. But technically, you know, listening to your target language with subtitles in your target language is better than listening to your native language with subtitles in your target language. That's better. So if you have to use subtitles, you can, but honestly, I just prefer that you use audio only. Okay. I'll be right back because I am thirsty and I forgot to drink something. So again, if you guys have any questions, you can ask me in the chat or whatever, and I'll just answer them when I get back. So I'll be right back. It'll be like really fast. Okay, I am back. Now we are going to talk about, oh, hold on. No, never mind. Okay, now we're going to talk about the past perfect.
Before you go on, can I ask
Yeah,
a question?
yes, go
All
ahead.
right. So let's say that I missed the bus. Now I'm gonna be late for work. Is there a difference if I say I've missed the bus? Now I'm gonna be late for work.
Nope, no
No?
difference. Mm-mm.
Oh, so I can use either
Yeah, because at this point
tense.
yeah, and I think it's because at this point there's nothing. It's not like the adverb yesterday that ties an event to a certain point in the timeline. Because here you could use either one, and it would be fine.
Oh,
I should
sweet.
Yeah, and I should actually point out something here. You reminded me of something. So regarding the present perfect and the past simple, when there are in the situations that you just described where you can use either, American English prefers the past simple, whereas British English prefers the let me omit someone. Whereas British English prefers the present perfect. So for example, let's use your example. So let's say I missed my bus In American English, you would more likely hear "I missed my bus," but in British English, you would more likely hear "I've missed my bus," or something like this: I I just did my homework for American English versus I've just done my homework for British English. Not going to say that it's like this all the time. It's not really perfect because there are times where American English has no problems using the present perfect, and there are times where British English has no problems using the past simple, but it's just a tendency. So British English tends to use this form and this form more often than American English, whereas American English tends to use this form and this form. But this is only for the contexts. Let me type this. This is only for contexts where, oops, where either verb form can be used. So just remember that. So in verb forms, in contexts where only one makes sense, well, of course, British and Americans alike, British English speakers and American English speakers alike are going to, prefer one form. But for contexts where either verb form can be used, well, this is where that tendency starts to show itself. And that's really just what I wanted to say.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Something I heard in a movie, I think. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember, but it's. I think the character said, "That's the best thing I've ever saw." Is that correct, or should it be, "That's the best thing I've ever seen"?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So you know that in the present perfect, well, first of all, to answer your question, that is wrong. The correct form is seen. So for the present perfect, we have this is the general form for the present perfect. You have to have plus a past participle. That's what we call that second verb. So for example, example 1, we have seen. So in this case, we have and seen, or has and seen. It really doesn't matter. It depends on the person. Seen here is the correct form, not saw. And that's the problem with English. Sometimes people just say, they mix up the past simple with the past participle. So you'll hear people sometimes saying things like, I should have went to the store, when it should be, I should have gone to the store. But people tend not to be so good at following grammar rules. Not that you can completely blame them, because even people who care about grammar tend to have a hard time following the rules, because language is just very hard and very abstract. But yeah, and of course there's also an issue of upbringing too. So, but yeah, this should be, I should have gone to the store, not I should have went to the store. I should have gone to the store. And of course, not I should have, that's the best thing I ever saw. That's the best thing I have ever seen. So it's seen and not saw. And there are times where, the form is the same. For regular verbs, the form is actually the same. So I worked on that assignment is the same thing as in form, I mean, for the past form. I have worked on that assignment. So as you can see, worked and worked are the same. So worked and worked here. Worked for the past simple and worked as a past participle are the same. So for regular verbs, that's the same thing. But for special verbs, irregular verbs, like went and gone, for verb to go, I mean, they're different. So for irregular verbs, it's different. So that's actually a good question though. So Remember, keep that in mind. And if you screw it up, don't worry, people will still understand you. But depending on where you are, you might sound a bit uneducated. But, no one's perfect at grammar. I'm not going to judge. And plus, people tend not to follow grammar rules all the time. So, it's just whatever. But if you do want to speak and write professionally, you should keep, standard grammar in mind. So, but yeah, to answer your previous question again, that's the best thing I've ever seen, not saw, seen. Does the style of language change the meaning, as in the American English and British English, in which you mentioned earlier? Do the different styles of saying change the meaning of the sentence? Actually, no. Someone just asked this question in the chat. Actually, no. There's a slight difference in meaning, but the meaning is overall the same. The present perfect just emphasizes that a past action occurred more recently, in this context anyway. So really, there's no difference in meaning. Either one would work. It's just a matter of style, I guess you could say. It's kind of like style, because you know how some dialects prefer one way and some prefer another. You could say it's like a stylistic thing. It's basically that. And like not like writing style, but more like just grammatical preference, I should say. That would be a better word for it. But there's really no difference in meaning. There's just no difference. Or there is a difference, but it's barely important. Okay. And yeah, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the past simple and the past perfect. And this is actually even easier to understand than the past simple and the present perfect, when you contrast the two. So again, the past simple is for actions that, took place sometime back, like at some point in the past. And they tend to be just one line. Not always, but I often think of them as just a single line on the timeline. Oops. So here we have oh my God. Past simple. That's like the past simple. So to make this easier, the past perfect is actually very much like the present perfect. But instead of starting at one point in the past and leading up to the present, like let's say here we have the present perfect. This is the present perfect, right? We have one point that starts, we have an action that starts in the past and leads up to, wait, let me not use past simple. Let me use past action. For the present perfect, we have an action that starts in the past and leads up to the present. That's the present perfect. But for the past perfect, it's a little bit different. So the past action is here. It's the same past action, but here's the difference. The past action leads up to another point in time in the past, and not another point in time in the present. So here, you can see that, let me type this here. Okay. So with the present perfect, there's an action that starts in the past and leads up to the present. For the past perfect, there's an action that starts in the past but leads up to another point in time in the past. So it doesn't lead up to the present. It's not a single point in time, but it's not something that leads up to the present either. It leads up to some other point in time in the past. So to provide an example, let me make this bigger. And let me type this down here. I don't want to erase this timeline. Okay, so he had already done his homework by the time his mom came home. So here we have a past perfect action. which is had already done. And to conjugate the past perfect, it's the same. It's not really hard to figure out. Instead of have and has, you just have had, which is the past tense. And then you just have the second verb, which in this case is done. So that's how you conjugate the past perfect. It's just had plus the second verb. So in this case, the past perfect is had already done because it starts in the past here, right? Oops. It starts in the past here and ends at another point in time in the past. And that other point in time here is the time his mom came home, when his mom came home. That's another point in time in the past. So it's different from the present perfect in that instead of stopping in the past, instead of stopping in the present, it stops in the past. But they both start from a past action. So that's the difference. So for the past perfect, you wouldn't use it for like something you just did. You use it for something that started at one point and stopped at another point in the past. So this other point here is that by the time his mom came home. Let me just fix that a bit. So in this case, when his mom came home, that's the second action right here. So the first action is he had already done his homework. This started in the past and led up to another point in time in the past by the time his mom came home. That was the second point in time. So the past perfect takes place entirely within the past. It's like the past simple, but instead of just taking place at one single point in time, it takes a block of time. So starts at one point, ends at another, but it's entirely in the past. Whereas the present perfect has a past action that starts in the past and ends in the present. So basically, to make this easier to understand, this action, the present perfect, action starts in the past and ends in the present. The past perfect is similar, but the action starts in the past. I can't type today. And ends in the past. Oops, that looks ugly. So that's the difference between the two. So again, the perfect aspect has something that starts at one point and ends at another. But here, the difference is just the tense. Present means that the perfect action, the action that has the perfect aspect, has a relation to the present. But for the past perfect, that perfect aspect of the action has a relation to the past. It just takes place entirely in the past. So that's really the difference between the two. But I don't think anyone will mix these up because it's really just the past simple that causes problems with people, because there are times where you can use it instead of the present perfect and times where you can use it instead of the past perfect. But here's the thing. Unlike the present perfect, you can't really see with the present perfect and past simple, sometimes you can use them interchangeably, as I said earlier, but with the past perfect and past simple, you can't really use them as interchangeably. And I'll show you an example in right now. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions?
Yes,
About,
I have one
yeah.
question.
Okay, what's your question?
So, are there any contexts where the past perfect and the present perfect could work? So, for example, if I say, my friend had known your secret for a while versus my friend's known your secret for a while, do both work in this particular sentence?
Yes, but here they would mean different things, very different things. So let me type what you just said. So let's say my friend, oops, has, my God, my friend has known your secret for a while. My friend, I need to work on my typing skills. My friend had known your secret for a while. So that's your example. Oh, sorry, I hit my headset. So in this case, this is the present perfect, and this is has known. This is present perfect, and had known is the past perfect. Okay, so these two, see, in this case, you could actually use either one, but it's not like the past simple and present perfect where you could use either one and the meaning would be the same, roughly. In this one, the meaning is entirely different. The meaning is completely different for these two because the first one means I've known your secret for a while and I still know it. The second one means I've known your secret for a while, but up to a certain point in time in the past. So the first one makes the action relevant to the present. The second one doesn't. So that's the difference between the two. So like for the second one, and this is kind of hard to see because the past perfect doesn't really make much sense by itself unless there's additional context. So let me add some context. What the heck? Oops. My friend had known your secret for a while by the time you asked him for it. Actually, let me see if I can fix that. I don't like that example. Okay. My friend had known your secret. Actually, we could put the for a while back there. Let's put that back. My friend had known your secret for a while when you asked him about it. So here, it's like he started knowing your secret at some time in the past, and right up to when you asked him about it, well, that's the whole time frame of his knowing your secret. So it's not like this one here where it's he starts knowing your secret in the past and then up to now where he still knows it. So it's like the first one means that the action is relevant to the present. The second one means that the action is, let me fix that. This is relevant to the present. And this is relevant to the past. I know someone just asked, did someone just ask a question? Oh, I thought they did. Yeah, I kind of don't like this example. I'm sorry, but it is kind of awkward now that I think about it. But it technically does work, but I could have provided a better one. Um, but so the difference here is that while both have an action that starts in the past and leads up to another point in time, this one implies that this action leads up to the present. This one implies that this action leads up to another point in time in the past. So this one's relevant to the present, that one's relevant to the past. And this other point in time in the past is, when you ask them about it. And see, as you can see, the past perfect doesn't make much sense by itself unless you have some additional context. And this could be implied. It doesn't actually have to be stated. So you could say, so you could have a sentence like this, where the parentheses here indicate that this is not stated but implied when you ask them about it. It's just implied. And it could work like that. So, but again, the past perfect needs additional context to make sense. Hopefully that answers your question. About the difference between, well, not the difference between the two, but how you could use both of them in the same situation, but that would mean different things. if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Clear as crystal.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, cool. Awesome. So now that we have that, okay, and you notice that so far I haven't actually mentioned the continuous aspect because I don't want to mention that right now because that will just confuse the hell out of people. So we're just going to focus on just the simple and perfect aspects because those tend to be easier to understand. And then we'll mix in the continuous aspect. Okay, so now let's talk about the past simple versus the past perfect. This is really, honestly, this is probably easier to understand than the past simple and the present perfect. Let's have an example here. I finished using the restroom when you knocked on the door, on the bathroom door. I had finished using the restroom when you knocked on the bathroom door. So here we have almost the exact same sentence, but the difference here is just this verb, finished and had finished. The first is the past simple, the second is the past perfect. So, and I think examples like these are actually good for explaining the difference between things like this because everything else is the same, but just this one part. So now you can just focus on this one part to tell the difference. So before I explain this, can anyone tell the difference between these two? Oh, someone raised his hand. Yes?
There is a had.
I'm sorry, you
I
said.
had finished.
Oh yes, that's the difference. But I wanna know what the difference is for, like what the meaning difference is, like the difference in terms of meaning. Like what does the first one mean and what does the second one mean, and how did they differ? That's what I'm asking. So like, oh, hold up, someone has. You're close. You're close. But here, see, we have the conjunction when. So with the when, the first one would actually mean it's not a matter of before. So it's not a matter of before, it's a matter of when. So you're close. You're on the right tracks. You are actually on the right track. So tracks. You just need to modify your answer a bit. You're on the right track though. At the exact same time. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. You have it. So Trax said the answer in the chat. The first one says that the action, here, let me actually put this here so that, first example, both actions were done at the same time. That's the difference. Whereas the second example means that one action led up to another, hold on, let me say that. One past action led up to another past action and finished right there. So that's the difference. So when you use the past simple like that, in this context, you're implying that both actions happened at the same time. I finished using the restroom when you knocked on the bathroom door. Whereas this one, the second one is like, I had finished using the restroom when you knocked on the bathroom door. So I started using the restroom at some point. Well, I'm not saying. I finished using the restroom at one point, and it led right up to the part where you knocked on the bathroom door. So essentially, I was finished for a while. That's what the second one is saying. Like I was finished using the restroom for a while, compared to the first, where it's like I wasn't finished until right when you knocked on the bathroom door. So both were done at the same time, compared to the second one where one action led up to another action. So in this case, this part, I had finished using the restroom, led right up to when you knocked on the bathroom door. Whereas in this one, both actions took place at the same time. And in the case of the first one, you can actually use the, let me erase this. Yeah, undo that and erase that. Okay. You could actually, sometimes people actually use the adverb right to further emphasize that both actions were done at the same time. Like, I finished using the restroom right when you knocked on the bathroom door. So sometimes people use this adverb right to emphasize when both actions were done at the same time. But you could actually take it out and it would be fine. Okay. Let me just look in the chat. So in the second he finished use the bathroom before he knocked on the door? No. It just means that the second one means that he finished using the restroom just before the other guy knocked on the door, like just a moment before. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's actually a good point. I see what Trax is trying to say. The problem here is that people will often, here, let me erase this. Actually, no, I don't need to erase it. So one thing I should point out, here's a faulty rule of thumb that people use for the past perfect, that some people say, oh, just use this rule of thumb and you're fine. The past perfect is used when one action takes place before another in the past. This is not a good rule of thumb. It is absolutely horrible. Do not use it. It is terrible because the past simple often works like that too. So, because for example, how you can have a sentence like this, right? I washed the dishes before I watched TV. Isn't that one action taking place before another? See, I washed the dishes. That took place before I watched TV, right? So that how does that work there? You wouldn't use the past perfect here because using it before, well, the word before is just redundant. So you wouldn't say this, I had washed the dishes before I watched TV. No, you don't need to use the past perfect here because the past perfect already implies that one action took place before another. So you don't need to use before. The before here is not necessary. Do not say this. So we know that the past perfect is not that simple. It's not just a matter of, oh, it's just one action that takes place before another. No, it's not that simple. It is absolutely not that simple. The real meaning is that the past perfect, what differs between the past simple being used before another action and the past perfect being used before another action is that the past perfect implies that one action led up to another. So it's not a matter of this happened and then this happened. It's a matter of this happened by the time this happened. Oh, it sounds weird to you? Okay, but to show you an example, I just erased something that I did not want to erase. Yeah, let me, stop that. I'll just go back here. Okay. So let me erase this. Okay. So someone said something in the chat. Oh, you love what I'm doing? Thank you. So let's reuse the example we had. I had finished using the restroom when you knocked. Okay. So we have, let me move this out of the way. So we have two examples here, right? I had finished using the restroom when you knocked on the bathroom door. And I finished using the restroom before you knocked on the bathroom door. So according to that faulty rule of thumb, or let me not say faulty rule of thumb, let me say unhelpful rule of thumb, you use the past perfect when you want to express how one action took place before another action in the past, right? Except here you have two scenarios where both of those work, where the past simple or the past perfect could work. But here's the difference. When you use the past simple like this, oh wait, hold up. Someone has an answer in the chat. Exceptional rule of thumb. Okay, because see, it's just what I'm saying here is that it's just not a good rule of thumb, because the past simple can sometimes work like that too. So the difference here is that with the past perfect, and let me use a timeline here. I don't really need to use these anymore. Okay, so for the first example, we have a timeline, right? It's easier if I just show you a picture. So this is the past action, right? And this is, and that is when you knocked on the bathroom door. I'll label it. I'll label it as such. So this is the past action. When you finished using the restroom. And this is the second action. Okay. And we'll draw a second one here where I'll have the same thing, almost the same thing, but there's a difference. So people are probably asking me, okay, so if the past perfect isn't always used when one action takes place before another, well, what's the difference between the past simple and past perfect? Well, see, here's the thing. Let's say that this timeline here is the past perfect. And let's say that this timeline here is, let me use a different color. Let's do, no, I want to use green. Let's use green. Green, not light green, dark green. Light green looks nasty. Okay, so past perfect and past simple. So we'll say that this timeline corresponds to the past perfect, and this timeline corresponds to the past simple. And of course, both have the same the same basic timeline here when you finish using the restroom and when someone knocked on the bathroom door. And let me fix that. Okay. And you have two timelines here. So this timeline for the past perfect and this timeline for the past simple. And again, both have the same past actions, but here's the thing. Here's the difference. So with the past perfect, one action leads up to another. With the past simple, well, that doesn't happen. They're separated. It's complete separation. So you can see here that here here you have separated past events, and here you have connected past events. So that's really the basic difference between the past perfect and the past simple. When you use the past perfect, you're implying that like when you have, like, say, I did this before I did that, you're implying that two events are distantly spaced in time. They're separated. Compared to the past perfect, where you have two past events that are connected, whereas one action leads up to another. Let me put that down here. So do you see what the difference is here? So the past simple implies that two events like have some sort of separation. So when you say, I took the trash out and then I went then I left to go walk my dog, those two actions are separated. there's no connection. But if you say something like, I had finished taking out the trash by the time I decided to walk the dog, well, now you're connecting those two events. So one event leads up to the other event. So that's the difference here. So does that make sense? And do you understand why you can't rely on the rule of thumb that says that the past perfect is used whenever any action takes place before another action in the past? Because this is why. It's not that simple. So does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions?
So I have a question. So for example, in this sentence, before I knew it, she had run out the door. It only works with the past perfect, right? The past simple wouldn't make sense in that sentence, right?
Here, let me retype what you just said. So you were saying, you said, I'm sorry, before I knew it.
Yeah, before I knew it, she'd run out the door.
Okay, that's actually a good question. Before I knew it, she had run out the door. Actually, in that case, well, no, I'm thinking. She had run out the door before I knew it. That one's actually kind of hard to answer. Normally, I should have said this earlier. Normally, you don't use the past perfect with before, but because, it's kind of redundant, because the past perfect already implies that one action was taking place before another action. But in some contexts, that could work. So I don't really see what's wrong with this sentence. So you could say this, but this is just an exception, really. Normally, you don't use the past perfect with before, but there are contexts where you can do that, I guess. Like I already knew this, but normally using the past perfect would be, I'm sorry, the past perfect with before sounds really bad, but in this case it can work. Although honestly, I would just say instead, by the time I knew it. That would be better than before. By the time I knew it, she had run out the door. To me, that sounds better than just saying before I knew it, she had run out the door. I don't know. That's how I would use the past perfect with. It's often used with by the time, but don't rely on quick rules of thumb like that. But personally, I would just say by the time I knew it. I don't really like using the past perfect with before, but it's not always wrong to do so. There are some occasions where you can, but normally it's not necessary and should just be avoided. But to answer your question, the original sentence is fine. It's actually fine. So it's not always wrong to use the past perfect like that, but normally you shouldn't. But in that case, in that example you provided, that's fine. So
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Now I have another sentence
Okay.
that's also kind of confusing. So I didn't say anything until she had finished talking. Is the past perfect correct there?
That's actually a good question too, because there are times where using the past simple like that, would actually also work. So I don't want to erase this, but here, before I do that, let me show that this is connected to this, and this is connected to this, just for everyone's reference. And now I'll just go ahead and erase this sentence, and I'm not and I should point out right now, like I'm not an expert in grammar or anything, so I'm not claiming to get everything right. But I do know a lot about grammar, and since I'm a native speaker, that helps. So not everything I say should be taken as gospel, but I do try to make sure that everything I say is accurate. So that's just a disclaimer I wanted to put up.
Well, you're a native speaker. You're automatically expert in grammar.
Pretty much, yeah. But there are times where even we don't understand our grammar, and that there are times where even we get things wrong. But you are right in a sense, yeah. Native speakers don't make competence errors. They make errors, but not competence errors, if that makes sense. But to go back to what you said, I didn't say, what was it? I didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything until she had finished talking.
I don't like this sentence, really. To me, these should be swapped. The I didn't say, the didn't say, and the aspect, I mean. I didn't say and had finished. These should be swapped. I think the sentence would read better like this. I hadn't said anything until she finished talking. Or actually, you could actually say either here. I don't see what's wrong with putting didn't here. I didn't say, hadn't said anything until she finished talking. I'm trying to think, actually, because I've noticed this myself. There are times where people do use the past simple with until like that. So it's kind of hard to say. But there are times where only the past perfect makes sense. I hadn't said anything until she finished talking. I didn't say anything until she finished talking. Actually, I'd say here, you could probably use either. But using had finished here, just no, don't do that. It should be finished. But here you could say didn't say or hadn't said. I don't see how didn't say is wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but so I don't really see what's wrong with either one here. But don't say until she had finished talking. We really don't use the past perfect like that after until. It tends to be used before until and not after until. So if you said until she had finished talking, I mean, it's not going to sound horrible, but no, it would be better to just use finished. So to answer your question, didn't say is fine for the first part, but had finished is not. Okay.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Uh-huh. We could say I waited until she was done talking. Essentially change the sentence without changing the meaning. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, Trax. Thank you, actually. Because in that case, you could say, you could say I waited until she was done talking, and that would be fine too. You could also say had waited, but that would mean something else. But again, in this case, you could actually just use the past simple. Past perfect isn't always used before until. It's not always used before until. You could also use it. You could also use the past simple sometimes. So it really just depends. It's hard to, in this case, it's hard to come up with a fast rule. Like 9 times out of 10, I just know when to use the past simple in this case and when not to. But Trax made a good point in the chat. You could say I waited until she was done talking. And I guess the difference here between I wait and, let me type it out actually. Let me type it out. That's actually a good point. I waited until she was done talking. And of course, the past simple has to be used in the second part. But for the first one, it could be either the past simple or the past perfect. I had waited until she was done talking. I think the difference here is that the first one, it's what I've been saying. The first one is like, the second one is like, you started in the past and then you stopped at some point in the past, which in this case is until she was done talking. But in the first one, it's not like that. I'm trying to explain it. I don't know. Like, I think the second one just implies like a more limited time frame compared to the first one. The first one is like, the first, I don't know how to explain this one. This is actually tricky, but to me, the second one here makes it sound like the time frame is like more narrow, more limited. I had waited until she was done talking, and whereas the first one kind of, I don't know how to explain this part. It's really tricky, but in any case, the basic idea is that you could use either one here. So yeah, good questions all around. I don't know how to explain this one. It's like I have an idea of it in my head, but I can't quite explain what the difference is. But everything else I could explain more or less. Yeah, it's just the feel of the language. It's just one of those things that you just can't overtly explain. But I'm glad you understand tracks. It's like I get the difference, but it's just hard to explain. I don't know. But, you know, again, that's even non-natives have this too. Like there are times where I'm learning Spanish and there are times where I just feel that something's right and I don't even know why. I'm like, I don't know why, it just is. It's the same thing for anyone really, native or non-native, for anyone who's proficient in the language anyway. Okay, but again, the key thing here is that, you know, there are times where you can use either one and the meaning would actually be more or less the same. But they tend to be rare. These contexts tend to be not as common as contexts where you could use either the past simple or the past simple or the present perfect. So for contexts where you could use either the past simple or the past perfect, they tend to be more limited in comparison to examples where you could use the past perfect, the past simple and the present perfect. I keep mixing these names up, but anyway, but yeah, that's really all I have to say on that. But to go back to what I was saying before, when you use for this example right here, when you use the past perfect like this with the conjunction when, you're implying that two events are connected and that one led up to another. For this one here, with the past simple and the conjunction before, you're implying that the events are distantly spaced in time. And it doesn't matter how distantly spaced they are. They could be like a second or a millisecond or an hour or a day. It really doesn't matter. They're just distantly spaced in time. And of course, when you use when in this case, like in this, if you replace before with when, you're just implying that both events took place at the same time. So that's really the difference between all of these. So again, the past perfect is not merely used to describe one action that takes place before another. It's more complicated than that, as you can see here. So let me just erase all that. So before I go on to the future simple and the future perfect, does anyone have any questions? So if not, hold up one moment. Sorry, be right back. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to change one of my shirts. It got hot in here. And let me move this out of the way. It just keeps getting in the way. Okay. Yes, that's a good question, Trax. I'm actually glad you're asking questions like these because not only are you helping me to clarify some things of what I've said, but you're also helping me. You're also in a sense providing feedback to me, if that makes sense. But basically, you're basically helping to make my lessons a little better. So I thank you for that. Oh no, thank you. But that's actually a good question. I actually wanted to bring this up. Something something that has actually kind of been a problem, not a huge problem, but kind of a problem people, when they want to ask things that aren't related to the topic at hand, you can do that, but don't do it while I'm doing the lesson, or like do it after I'm done with the lesson, and preferably after I say I'm done recording. And then after that point, you guys can just stay around and ask me questions about other topics that don't matter to the lesson. So that way, because again, I'm recording this and I want other people to see this, and so that they don't have to deal with all that extra nonsense. So if you want to ask me questions that aren't related to the lesson at hand, wait until after the lesson, like after the lesson, and then you can ask those questions. Like, don't ask them before. And if you want to ask me a question about something that is related, try to wait until like when I'm done explaining that part of the lesson. Unless there's something like that you really need me to clarify. It's like basically if you want to interrupt me, like try to be, try to be prudent about it. Like, try not to interrupt me like at the worst times, like, or like when I'm right in the middle of explaining something, unless it's really important. Like, just wait until after I stop explaining something, even if I don't pause, and then you can ask. Like, it's just a matter of just knowing when to ask and when not to ask. But of course, I will try to pause every now and then, and if I forget, you can always just stop me, because again, like those are the times when you should interrupt me. But you know, just basically just try to be like, not saying that anyone's being rude or anything, or being mean or anything like that. Just try to be a little more considerate when you ask. Of course, when you're in the chat, you can ask questions at any time. It doesn't really matter because they don't interrupt my lesson. But it's just a matter of knowing when to ask and when not to ask. So that's just what I wanted to say. Um, Discreet, yeah, in a sense. Like, just try to ask at the right times, basically. And if you have things that aren't related to the question that you want to ask about, wait until after the lesson and not before, because there are a few people who have done that, and I'm like, no, you should wait until after the lesson is done. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Let's just keep going. Let me drink some water really fast. Oh, and yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, Trax. Like, if you're gonna ask me about stuff that isn't related to the lesson, just wait until after I'm done recording and when I'm done with the main lesson. And then after that, you guys can just hang around and ask me questions about other things, or even more questions about the lesson. Because I can't keep explaining everything forever. But whatever. But you get what I mean, nonetheless. What was I going to say? Oh, well, whatever. Anyway, let's move on to the future simple and the future perfect. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the continuous aspects. We're just not going to focus on them right now because, see, it's like, how in Spanish has about the same number of tenses as English, but Spanish teachers don't often list the progressives as separate tenses like in English. So I want to follow that kind of model, because if you include the progressives, you just make everything more complicated and messy. So I'm just going to think of it as an extension. So I'm not going to focus on it as a separate tense for now. But anyway, let's talk about the future simple and the future perfect. Oh, and thank you, Yepers, for the compliment. I do try to make my lessons good. My first Zoom lesson was kind of a mess, but it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So I'm getting better and better at this. And I have a membership, so I don't have to worry about stupid time limits. So that's good. Let's see. So the future simple and future perfect are very similar to the past and present forms, but the difference is that, well, obviously these events take place in the future. So in an event that will take place later from now. So let's say I will go to work later, right? And I know I say right a lot. I'm not trying to like convince you to think a certain way or anything like that. That's just That's just a mannerism that I've adopted recently, and I don't like it. But just making that clear. But anyway, I will go to work later. So we have the future simple here. And again, to conjugate the future simple, it's just will plus the bare form of the verb. Let me actually cover that briefly. So to conjugate, conjugation of future tense. I will go, you will go, he, she, it, oops. Oh no, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher in real life. I honestly could have been by now. I don't know why I didn't think of it. But I don't know. It's just at first I didn't think teaching was for me, but you know, now that I think about it, maybe I should pursue it. I don't know. I'm still wondering what the heck I want to do. And yeah, if you're wondering, I am a university student. Just for those who are wondering. Okay. Let's see. We will go. So I'm not an actual teacher. We will go. You all will go, and they will go. So it's the same conjugation, will plus the bare form of the verb. So let's say we have to go. In this case, you just put the verb after to. It's basically just, you just basically take this part with to out and replace it with will. And then that's it. It's that easy. English conjugation is mind-numbingly easy. It's just that simple. Compared to like say Spanish, where you have to learn a set of endings like for to verb to go, you have to be like iré, irás, irá. No, we don't do that in English. We don't do that. We don't do that. In this case, you just use will plus the bare form of the verb, which in this case is go. And with the future perfect, instead of the future perfect simple, I'm sorry, future simple, instead of the future simple, you have the future perfect. It's just I will have gone. So it's just will have. I'm not even going to bother typing the rest because it's the same. It's just will have. Will have. And then your verb here, which is gone. So you just, it's the past participle plus will have. So and it's the same all the way down. I'm not going to just type everything because that's redundant. Are you learning Spanish because you seem to know a lot of Spanish? Yeah, actually, I would say that I'm B2 in terms of comprehension, not in terms of speaking. So I've been learning Spanish for quite some time. That's how I know a lot of it. And sometimes I actually use that as a parallel, you know, to provide contrasts with English so that I could explain certain topics better. But yeah, I do know some Spanish. I'm still working on it though. I'm getting to advanced. I'm still working on it though. I'm upper intermediate. Anyway, that's how you conjugate that. Really easy. But anyway, here, back to our example, we have I will go to work later. The later, you know, makes it pretty obvious that this event is going to take place at a later point in time, at a point in time that will occur later from now. So tomorrow, you know, you'll go to work. You could say that tomorrow I'll go to work. Or you could say 6 days from now I'll be elected to be president. Or, you know, and it's just the future simple is just used for any event that'll take place in the future or in, you know, some distant point in time from now. It's pretty self-explanatory. And we have, that's a future simple. And the future simple implies that, you know, when you have a timeline here, the future simple implies that one action here, it's just one action that takes place at a single point in time. That's the future simple. But the future perfect is just like the past and present perfect, but the past perfect and present perfect. But instead, you have an event that starts in the, well, actually, it could start. It's actually here. The funny thing here is, here, let me show you. with the future perfect, you have an event that starts in the present and goes to the future. It leads up to some point in time in the future. So here, with the future perfect, you have an event that starts in the present and then continues all the way to the future. So it starts at one point in time and goes to another, like the other two perfects, like the past perfect and the present perfect, but the future perfect starts in the present and goes to the future. It leads up to another point in the future. So for example, as an example, let's say by the end of the month, I will have completed all of my projects. So here we have will have completed. I will have completed all of my projects. Oops, did someone? Oh, no, just a Discord message. Okay. So by the end of the month, I will have completed all my projects. Will have completed, will have completed is the future perfect form of the verb to complete. So here we use the future perfect because by the end of the month implies that, let me not use double lines here. By the end of the month implies that I'm starting now, and 1 month from now, I will have completed all my projects. Like all my projects will be completed. So the future perfect is for starting in the present and leading all the way up to the future. So it's pretty much like it's not any different from the other two perfects, like past and present perfect. It's just that it's just the time that's the difference. So where the action leads to, that's the difference between all three of them. So if it leads to another point in time in the past, it's the past perfect. If it leads to another point in time in the present, or leads up to the present, I should say, then it's the present perfect. But if it leads up to the sometime in the future, it's the future perfect. Compared to the simple aspect, which just means that events take place at one point in time, and they don't lead up to any other point in time. So, in another example, you could say, when father comes home, I will have made a big supper for him, or a big dinner, let's say. I will have made a big dinner for him. When father comes home, I will have made a big dinner for him. Or you could say, here, maybe it'd be better if I did this. By the time, let's say that. That's a little bit better. By the time father comes home, I will have made a big dinner for him. So here we're starting the present because your father's not home, but by the time he comes home, you will have made a big dinner for him. So will have made is the future perfect here. And so again, we started in the present, and now we're going to lead up to the future. So in this case, when your father comes home in the future, you will have made a big dinner for him. You started making a dinner for him now, and in the future, you will be finished. So it's, it starts in the present and leads up to the future. So that's what the future perfect does. And notice how the future simple doesn't really work here, and I'll show you in a moment. This doesn't work here. This is not grammatically correct. By the time father comes home, I will make a big dinner for him. You can't use the future simple like that. Because again, when you say something like by the time father comes home, you're implying that one event starting from now will lead into the future. compared to the future simple, where that implies that one point in that, in the future you'll do something and it will occur at one point in time. So the future simple is different from the future perfect in that the future simple takes place entirely in the future. So whereas the future perfect implies that you're starting from the present and leading up to the future. So the future simple can't be used for actions that start in the present and lead up to the future. But you could say this, actually, and let me erase that. Let me erase all that and fix this. So let's change this. It will be make. By the time, okay, so let's say this. Okay, so you could actually say this instead. When father comes home, I will make a big dinner for him. So here, when father comes home, okay, now that's fine. And then you could say, I will make a big dinner for him. This is fine because this action takes place entirely in the future. And at that point in time, when your father comes home, then you'll start making dinner. So you're not starting from the present and then, finishing in the future. You're starting in the future and finishing in the future. So that's really the difference between the future simple and the future perfect. And you could actually, and again, as I said before, here, you could actually use either the future simple or the future perfect for the conjunction when. So like when father comes home, I will have made a big dinner for him. You could say that too. So you could say, when father comes home, I will have made a big dinner for him, or when father comes home, I will make a big dinner for him. The only difference is that, again, here, let me erase this. Let me show you the difference here. Oh, you raised your hand? Okay, let me just finish explaining this for a moment before I continue. When father comes home, I will make. Okay, so, and let me actually redraw this timeline. And let me move this out of the way. So I will get to your question in a moment, Trax, don't worry. Okay, so here we have the future perfect, and here we have the future simple. Okay, so when father comes home, I will make a big dinner for him. When father comes home, I will have made a big dinner for him. So what's the difference? Okay, well, as I said, the future simple is for actions. When the future simple is, hold up, sorry. The future simple is used for actions that take place entirely in the future and at a single point in time. So the first one means, let me erase. Actually, let me be consistent here. I'll underline this too. Okay, so here, this means that when he comes home, then you'll start making dinner for him. But this one here means that you'll start making dinner now and you'll finish in the future. So they're both future events, but with the future simple right here, it's going to take place entirely in the future. But with the future perfect right here, it starts in the in the present. It starts in the present and goes all the way up to the future. So now do you see the difference? The future perfect implies that a future action has connection to the present. So let me type that out. Whereas the future simple implies no connection to the present. So that's really the difference between the two. Okay, now let's go ahead and ask let me answer these questions. What if we put would? By the time father comes home, I would have made dinner for him. I wouldn't use would like that. Would is would is like what is a messy mood? It's a conditional mood marker, so you can't really use it like that. I don't think it works like that. I can't quite explain why, but we tend to use a conditional mood when we want to talk about things that would probably happen. But you can like see the thing is with the with when you use would have like that, it's a past conditional mood essentially. It's a past conditional. So well, you can't really say when father comes home, I would have made dinner for him. It just doesn't make any sense to say that because again, would have implies something that happened in the past. So, but here you have something when father comes home. That's future. So that doesn't really make any sense. So it's a combination of the field of language and the fact that really would have points to the past and not the future like that. So if you want to use the future, you have to use will. You can't really use would like that. And who else raised his hand? Yeppers, you raised your hand. What else did you want to say? I mean, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it's I just came up with a sentence, and I'm not sure if it's the future perfect. So it's once I finish eating the shrimp, I will have had 5 shrimps. Is that future perfect?
Yes. And that's actually a
Yeah.
grammatically correct sentence. So yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I got a bit confused because it's. Oh, no. Never mind. I think I've understand it now.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, what was I saying? Let's see. Well, I think I answered that already. But yeah, I don't know. We don't use would have like that. We tend to use would have for past events, so using it like that doesn't really work. Okay. But really, that's just really the future simple is just so easy. The future simple, future perfect are honestly not that difficult. And I know this because, see, the future simple is used a lot in the English language. It's used frequently. Oops. But the future perfect is not really used very often. It's used occasionally. That doesn't mean that we don't know that we natives don't know how to use it. We do, but we just don't use it very much. It's not used a lot. You do hear it, but it's just used only occasionally. So, I mean, so even if you don't completely understand it, I wouldn't worry that much about it because, again, it's not used that much. So, so you're not going to get many chances to use it, even if you wanted to. You're not going to get many chances to use it. I mean, it's just one of those instances where you have a feature in a language, but it's not used very much, even though natives do know how to use it. It's just like that. So don't worry too much about the future perfect because you're not going to get a lot of chances to use it. Of course, you do want to learn how to use it. Of course, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that you have to memorize because we don't really use it that much. It's not in a major tense compared to the future simple or the present perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the continuous aspect, but before I do that, does anyone have any questions? um, sorry. So if nobody has any questions, I'll just move on to the continuous aspect. So let's see. Oh, it's almost 5 a.m. In your area? Okay. Okay, you'll go to sleep now? Okay, well, Thank you for coming, Rayanne, thank you for coming. I hope you found this lesson great. And I'll try to have a lesson. I'm going to have a lesson like really early tomorrow, like 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that should work for everyone because people are more active at around that time. I know I tend to have my lessons kind of late, so I'm going to try to move them up earlier to make it easier for everyone because for some people it's really late right now. So, but yeah. Thank you for coming. Oh, and of course, thank you for the comments, for the compliments. Okay, so let me go ahead and move on to the continuous aspect. Okay, so with the continuous aspect, okay, let's list out all the things all the forms we've covered, every single one, which isn't much. So present simple. Oh, you just noticed in the class info? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm gonna try to have a lesson earlier. You're almost out of juice. You have to head out too? Oh, okay. Well, thank you for coming, Yeppers. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And I'm glad you enjoyed my lesson. Thank you for the feedback, everyone. I'm really there really isn't much to talk about for the continuous aspect. So, but you know, of course, people have to go when they have to go. But anyway, my lessons, for the record, for everyone's reference, they never really exceed 3 hours. I can't name a lesson that has exceeded 3 hours. Oh, maybe by a few minutes, but never really by a lot. So I try to keep it between 2 and 3 hours. But anyway, you know, just so you all know how these lessons will start to how they work and how I'll change them from here on out. Okay, so we have the present simple. Okay, so it's just one person left. That's okay because other people are going to watch this. I actually have a YouTube channel that I'm going to post this stuff on. Except I didn't record my lesson with conditionals, which I'm kind of mad about, but you know, that's okay because like I didn't have the membership at that time and it was just 3 disjointed lessons instead of 1 continuous lesson. So, you know, I'll cover the conditional mood again at some point, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'll probably cover it after my next lesson on pronoun cases, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so we have the present simple and present perfect, past simple, and past perfect, and then future simple and future perfect. Okay, so this is what we covered so far. Oh yeah, I'm happy to hear that, Trax. But anyway, yeah, I do appreciate you being here. So we covered these so far. We have the present simple, the present perfect, the past simple, the past perfect, the future simple, and the future perfect. All of these, we covered all of these, but we haven't covered the continuous forms because each form here can actually be combined with a continuous aspect. So knowing this, we actually get 6 more. We actually get 6 more combinations. So present simple continuous, or quite simply present continuous. Because some people call the present simple continuous, some people call the present continuous. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. But you know, I'm just going to put it there for reference. And then we have present perfect continuous. That one you can't drop. You can't drop the perfect. You can drop the simple, but you can't drop the perfect. Okay, so past simple, past continuous. And yeah, that's a good point. Some people call it progressive, some people call it continuous. Let me actually change that. In fact, I was actually going to use the progressive term first. I was actually going to use that one instead of continuous, but continuous is fine. Okay, so continuous aspect, aka also known as progressive aspect. Okay, of course there's past perfect continuous. And then we have future simple, future, my God, I can't type today, future simple. I need to go back and take my typing lessons again. And I'm on my computer like 24/7. What the heck? Well, not 24/7, but a lot. Future perfect continuous. Yeah. See, I don't think. See, I think. See, continuous and perfect are. I'm sorry. Continuous and progressive are used by both. Are used by both natives and non-natives, but progressive is more common. Continuous is like continuous is I think it was more common at at some point in history, but nowadays people tend to more often say progressive. But again, either way, it's the same thing. So now we have 6 more combinations. This, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of preference. I use both, to be honest. I use both. Sometimes I use continuous, sometimes I use perfect. I'm sorry, progressive. I think continuous was more common back then because I was looking at some old grammar books at one point, and I would see continuous instead of progressive, but either one works. Okay, so now we have 6 more combinations. So basically, you're just adding a continuous aspect to each of these. So now we have 12 total combinations. Okay. So knowing this, let me erase all that crap and take this. Put that up here. Oh, someone's into the room. Cool. Okay. Put you up here. Okay. And put you up here. Now let's talk about, let me highlight it too. Let's talk about the present simple continuous. Let me use a different color. I will use blue. Okay, so the continuous aspect is used for actions in progress. So it's when you want to express that the action didn't take place at a single instant in time. It's an action that took place over a certain period of time. So, but it's not like the perfect in that it starts at one point and leads to another. No, it's just an action that was ongoing. So let me type it. Let me put like some sort of definition for it. From now on, I'm just going to refer to this as continuous, but for this, I'll just say continuous and progressive. This is used for actions that are ongoing or in progress. In other words, they don't take place at single points in time. Well, maybe that's not the best way to say it because the perfect aspect is like that too. It doesn't take place at single points in time, but let's just say that. Yeah, that's a better definition. Okay, so to provide an example, and again, welcome whoever came in. P.S. Welcome. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about the present simple continuous. So let's say I work tomorrow. Let's say no. I'm working on an assignment. Let's say that. I'm working on an assignment. So, and let me not use contractions actually, because I don't like highlighting when there are contractions there. Okay. So now we have I am working on an assignment. This means that, so here we have a timeline, right? And this is the present action right here. We'll call this a present action. But here's what the continuous aspect does. Let me actually erase this. Oh, not that. No. Okay, let's see. And this, okay. So it's like this. If here's a picture showing the difference. So here, this box here, it's like the duration of the action, how long the action takes. And you can see here that the present progressive or present continuous is for actions that are ongoing. They don't take place at one point in time. They tend to be lengthy processes, if that makes sense. So here I am working on an assignment. Well, this means that you are now working on an assignment, that you haven't worked on the assignment. I haven't finished working on the assignment. Like you're working on the assignment now and you're not finished. So you can see how this isn't a finished action in a sense. It's not finished in a sense because you're working on it and you haven't finished working on it. So yeah, they have yet to finish it. They're currently working on it, but they have started. That's the thing. So here, this action is in progress. In progress, as in it's not completed. Well, complete isn't the right word to use here because there are times where you could actually express a completed action that's ongoing. But in any case, this is an action that was in progress, as in it didn't take place at one point in time. And unlike the perfect aspect, it didn't start at one point and at another. It's just implied to be in progress. Okay. How so? Okay, well, here's an example. Like, what about, let's talk about the past, the present, let's talk about the past simple continuous. So let's say I was working on the assignment for 3 hours. This is technically a completed action, right? Isn't it? Because here, I don't like this color. Okay, here we have was working, but it's a completed action because it was for 3 hours. You worked on it for 3 hours and then you stopped. It's completed, but it's ongoing, if that makes sense, because it's not something, again, it's not something that happened at one point in time. And it's not like the perfect aspect where it's implied to take place between 2 points in time, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's past progressive. So in this case, you're expressing the completed action that's ongoing. So you can technically do that. Although there are times where was working can actually be incomplete. Like, for example, and let me erase this. So for example, you could say, I was working on the assignment when the phone rang. Oops. I was working on the assignment when the phone rang. So in that case, was working would technically be incomplete because you didn't finish working on the assignment when the phone rang, did you? No, you were in the middle of working on the assignment. So that's an incomplete action. But here, the bottom one here, I was working on the assignment for 3 hours. That's complete because it wasn't interrupted by anything. So for the first one, you have an interruption. And let me use a different color to, okay. So the first one, you have an interruption. For the second one, you have no interruption, if that makes sense. So that's the difference between the two. And that's really I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself. That's really the past simple continuous, which is like the present simple continuous, but it's in the past instead. So if you think about it, don't think of these as like separate concepts because they're not really separate. when you think about it, the present simple continuous is just an extension of the present simple. And the past simple continuous is just the extension of the past simple. So if you think about them as, being connected in a sense, instead of just thinking as, oh, this is separate, this is separate, this is separate. If you think of it as all just one form of another, then that'll make things easier. So don't think of these as separate tenses, because in a sense they're not. I was showering until the alarm rang. Yeah, that's a good example too. Well, actually, no, yeah, that is an example. That's a good example. Although in that case, that really wouldn't be interruption. It's more like, because you're using until. If you used when, then it would be interruption, but until doesn't imply an interruption there. But that is past progressive nonetheless. Oh, and I should also point this out. Let me move this out of the way. Oh, whoa. I don't want that to be in there. I made the chat window cover the whole thing. Okay, so, for Spanish speakers out there, I was having a shower when the alarm rang. Yeah, that would be a better way of saying it. Well, I mean, his example isn't wrong. Not using until like that isn't wrong, but it means something else, and that's the key here. Like it really wouldn't fit in the context that I'm talking about. But anyway, for you Spanish speakers out there, when you say I was working, you could say in this case, and I'm using this to make it easier for Spanish speakers to understand. It's like this. Cuando yo estaba trabajando, when I was working on the assignment. When I was working on the assignment, I'm trying to think. Or let me say this, when I was doing my homework. Let's say when I was doing my homework, I was working on my homework. I'm trying to think of trying to translate this into Spanish. Sorry if my Spanish skills suck. I was doing, that's not right. Okay, there, that makes more sense. I was doing my homework when the phone rang. And you could actually let me not mention that right now. So in Spanish, it would be like this. But here, that would be this. But here, yeah, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Okay. Okay, there we go. So here, let me change that. Okay, so here we have estaba haciendo, which translates to was doing my homework or was working on my homework. But here, oh, what the heck? Where'd it go? Okay. And here we have estuve haciendo mi tarea. See, the difference here is that English doesn't make this, what estaba and estuve here are preterite and imperfect. Well, it's the other way around, imperfect and preterite. But English doesn't have that distinction. We just use was for both. But in Spanish, you would say estaba haciendo because this is an incomplete event. But here you would say estuve haciendo because it's a complete event. So for you Spanish speakers, it's like that, essentially. Because the first one implies an interruption, the second one does not. And in Spanish, you could actually replace this with the bare form. You could just say hacía instead of haciendo. Estaba haciendo. You could say that. You could say that too. You could say either of these two. But in English, we can't really do that because if you use the past simple like that, yeah, let me show you. if you use the past simple like that, worked, then no, you can't do that because that would imply a completion. You can't do this. Don't do that. But in Spanish, you could do something like that and it would work. Just for you Spanish speakers out there, if this helps you understand the difference, well, it's like in Spanish, but we don't have the preterite imperfect distinction, so it's just was for both cases. Okay, so anyway, but that's just for your reference. Okay. So that's past simple continuous and present simple continuous. Let's see. Future simple continuous. Okay. So let's say I need to stop using that. Okay, I will be driving to the airport. So it's not really any different from, okay, well, let me show you the contrast here. I will drive to the airport. You're wondering what the difference is between these? Honestly, there isn't much of a difference, but here's the thing. The first one implies some sort of ongoingness to the action. Like it implies that the action will be in progress, whereas this one just implies that the action will be, it'll take place in the future too, but it'll be done. That's really the difference here. This one implies that this action is in progress. This one implies that this action will be complete. If that makes it, if in a sense, like it will take place. It won't take place over a certain period of time. It will just take place at a single point in time. So that's what this one does. The action will take place at a single point in time, whereas this one means that the action will take place over some long period of time, if that makes sense. So one is ongoing, the other is not. Oh, what the heck? Yeah, it will take some time to complete, basically. That's those. I can't really say much more than that. And that was the future simple continuous. Now let's talk about the present perfect continuous. Everyone loves that one. Not really, but anyway, this one is actually pretty commonly used compared to the past perfect continuous and the future perfect continuous, which are rarely used. Not rarely, I should say occasionally, but it's a similar meaning. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the present perfect continuous is like, let's look at how it differs from the present perfect. So I've been watching TV versus I've watched TV. So can anyone here tell me what the difference is between the two? Because this one is actually pretty clear to see. But I just want to see what others think about it. And it's okay if you don't get the answer right, because again, you're here to learn. The first one denotes some action that's been going for quite some time. Yes, exactly. And you're probably not finished typing, but what's the difference between this one and the second one? So the first one, yeah, it does denote an action that has been going for quite some time. But how does it differ from the second one? Yeah, exactly. That's the difference. Exactly. You got it. I'd give you a treat, but this is virtual. Anyway, let me actually, no, that can stay. Move. Okay, let's see. Okay. So I've been watching TV. This implies that the action has been going for quite some time and they still, and it's still not finished. Whereas this one means The action has been going for some time, but it's been done. So that's the difference between the present perfect continuous and the present perfect. Okay. Oh my God. This is not working the way I want it to work. I'm just really clumsy with these tools. Okay. So this one means action started in the past This means that the action started in the past and may still continue. This one means that the action started in the past and has been completed. So that's really the difference between the two. Someone actually put something in the chat. Let me look. Tree, so sweet of you. Yeah. And so I'll just give you a compliment. Good. You essentially understand the difference between these two. So that's the difference. The present perfect continuous means that the action started in the past and may still continue. And the second one means the action started in the past and it's been completed. Has been completed recently or has been some time since it was completed. Someone asked this question in the chat. It could be either, really. So you could say I've watched TV. Well, let me think. Wait, that's actually a good question. Let me think. I would say completed recently, yeah, because you use the present perfect if you want to emphasize that an action has some relevance to the present. So you could say that, and it's most often used with actions that have been completed recently. So yeah, I would say the first one. If you want to express that it's been some time since the action was completed, you really, I don't think the present perfect would be the best fit for that. But again, it's kind of hard to explain these because they're so abstract, and it's just something you have to get a feel for. But it's possible to get a feel for it. It's not impossible to get a feel for these, not at all. But I do like the questions I've been getting because they do make you think. Anyway, that's the present perfect continuous. The past perfect continuous, ooh, I don't like that color. Okay, past perfect continuous is, okay, so the past perfect continuous is like the present perfect continuous, but it just takes place in the past. Like, that's the only difference. That's really the only difference. So when you say something like he had been I'm trying to think. He had been filming he had been filming uh he had been filming when we came home. Let's give him a name. Let's say Chaz. Chaz had been filming when we came home. Versus, let's add a contrast. Chaz had filmed when we came home. Oops. Okay, so it's really the same thing as the present perfect forms, but here you have actions that took place entirely in the past. So really, perfect continuous is the same no matter what tense you use, present, past, future. But here, this means let me not use that color. This means that the action started in the past and the action started in the past and led up to another point in the past and may still continue. So it's like the present perfect continuous, but it takes place entirely in the past. Whereas this one means that it started in the past and ended at some point in the past, but it's not going to continue. That's the difference. That's what the continuous aspect does. It implies continuation in a sense. So this one means, and I'll address what was said in the chat in a moment. So let me just type this first. Why am I doing this? Okay. This one means action started in the past led up to another point in the past and may still have continued. Whereas this one means the action started in the past, led up to another point in the past. And in this case, the other point would be when we came home. And then, but stopped right there. Okay. So that's the difference between the two. And this other point in the past that I keep referring to here, see? Another point in the past here and here, that corresponds to this, when we came home. That's the other point in the past. So Chaz started filming at one point in the past, and then at another point in the past, when we came home, he, that's the other point in the past. Okay. May still have continued is not the future tense. It's like it's a past. It's like would have continued. No, would have's not a good. May have continued is it refers to a past action. See, whenever you use any of the modal verbs like would, could, may, might, they refer to the past. So it's not a future tense. But if you wanted to express a future form, you'd say may still continue. That could refer to the past or the future. I'm sorry, present or the future, if that makes sense. So when I say Chaz had filmed when we came home, it means that he started filming in the past, and it led up to when we came home, and then he stopped right there. Here, actually, why don't I just let me provide another example. I'll provide another example, and I don't want to erase that. Okay. Let me use another example. You'd been you'd been working so late by the time it was midnight. Or let me use by the time it became midnight. Versus you'd worked so late. Oops, I put by the time twice. I was like wondering, wait, why is this sentence longer? Okay. So here we have another example. So here, and this is you. This is a contraction for you had. So just there's a had in there, but it's a contraction by this apostrophe D. That's what the had represents. So had been working and had worked. So if we draw a timeline here, move that out of the way. Let's have a timeline right here, expressing the difference between the two events. So we'll make our past perfect scenario. And past, we'll say that this is a past reference point. Like it's just at one point where you started, oops. It's just at one point where you started working on, you started working so late. And then this one would be, let's say, it became midnight. So we have these two these two reference points in time. So you started working at one point, like say maybe 8 o'clock, and then like you started working at some point here, and then it became midnight here. So remember, the past perfect has one action that leads up to another. So here, this leads up to that. And then the same thing, it's here, right? Where like, well, okay, again, the first timeline represents the present perfect continuous. The second one represents the present present perfect, yeah, just the present perfect. So here's the difference. Both imply that, one event started in the past to lead up to another point, but with the past perfect continuous, the event may still continue. See, it may still continue. So it may have gone past that point. It may have still continued. And I should say may have still continued because it's a past action. I shouldn't say may still continue because that doesn't make any sense. So here, the first one means you've been working so late, and when it became midnight, well, you still might have wanted to work later. So that's what this one means. Like, again, it's an ongoing action combined with the perfect aspect, which implies that you're in the middle of working, and you were in the middle of working, and you may still have wanted to keep working. Whereas this one is like, it stops right at this line right here. It doesn't go any further. So if you try to drag it across here, it wouldn't work. So, well, that's what it wouldn't mean anyway. So here, there's no implication that the action is going to continue. Oh, sorry. So here, yeah, this means like with the past perfect, there's no implication of an action that's continuing. And I know I know you raised your hand. I just want to finish explaining this one point. So with the first one, you'd imply, I still want to keep working, but with the second one, you'd imply, I don't want to keep working anymore. So it just cuts off right at that point that it became midnight. So you have a cutoff point right here. So here it's like, it's midnight, I'm not going to work anymore. So that's the difference between the two. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, someone had a question. Can we say you had worked late until midnight? That's actually a good question. You could, but it wouldn't make any sense unless it wouldn't make any sense unless you had another action. See, the thing about the past perfect, and I didn't emphasize this enough, I'm sorry about that. Let me erase all this because we're done explaining this part. With the past perfect, the thing about it is that it needs additional context to make sense. So you can say something like this. Let's say that we have the past simple. I finished washing my car. This sentence makes sense by itself, right? It's complete. You don't need any additional context. It's just, you can add context if you want, but the sentence is fine without it. Whereas you have this one. I had finished washing my car. Okay, you finished washing your car, but did anything else happen? Because see, you say I had finished washing my car, but like, did something else happen? It sounds incomplete by itself like that, because you use the past perfect to set up context for another action sometimes. So if you leave it there by itself, people are going to be wondering, okay, you had finished washing your car when what happened? But with the first one, it's like, it's fine. Like, people will get your point. Like, it's like, you finished washing your car? Oh, okay, boom, we understand. No additional context needed. So basically, this one here, this is fine without additional context. This is not fine without, oops. So as you can see, the past simple doesn't necessarily need context to make itself understandable. But the past perfect, you do need additional context. So if you use the past perfect like that, people are going to be like, okay, you had done something, but what else happened? Like, you had done something, and well, when you had done something, when what? But see, here's the thing. So now if you add additional context here, like that, if you add additional context there like that, here's our additional context. When my kids came home from school, then it would be fine. It would be fine, because now you have a complete picture. I had finished washing my car when my kids came home from school. Okay, cool. Now you have additional context. And it doesn't actually have to be stated all the time. It could be implied from the context. The context could be implied too. So, like with the parentheses here, emphasizing that this is an implication here, this whole clause here, when my kids came home from school, that's implied. So you could actually leave that part out if the context already established it, and then you would be fine with having this sentence by itself, this part by itself. I had finished washing my car. So to make this a little clearer to understand, it seems like, let's say we have person A. Person A says, I brought the, let's say person A, you brought the kids home from school. And person B is like, yes, I did. And then person A is like, by that time, by that time, I had already finished washing the car. I thought it would take longer. I thought it would take longer than I thought, or had thought. It doesn't really matter. So here, use a different color. Okay, here, oops, I probably should have erased that line. Okay, there. Okay. So here, I had already finished washing the car. You notice that I don't have a clause attached to that sentence. Like I don't have something that says, you know, I had finished washing my car when the kids came home. I didn't put the when the kids came home there because the context here made that already clear. So you can see that the past perfect doesn't always require that something be connected to it. Sometimes the context can, you know, be fine, you know, can provide that that extra information that's needed. So the past perfect can sometimes stay alone by itself, but only if there's additional context. So here you can actually have the past perfect by itself. I had already finished washing the car. There's nothing else. So in essence, to answer your question, yes, you can say you had worked late until midnight, but you need additional context for the past perfect in that scenario to work. So it can be implied or expressed. So you can outright say you had worked late by that time. By the time that we came home, you had worked late until midnight or something like that. But you could also have it implied from the context. So you could just leave that extra stuff out, and as long as the context makes it clear, then you don't need it. So you get the idea. But with the past simple, context, you often don't need additional context. So like you could say, I worked late until midnight. Done. I had worked late until midnight. Okay, and you get what I mean. Okay, almost done with this. Now let's do the future simple and future simple continuous and future perfect continuous. And if you're wondering why, like, a lot of what I write and type, a lot of what I type and draw and write and all that stuff is on the left side, is because I have the chat window on the right side. So I don't like minimizing the chat window so much, so I tend to just keep it on one side and then write the rest on the other side. But I do try to take up as much room on the screen as I can. So it's like the chat window stops like right here for me, and it's like on the other side, like right here, is where I put the chat window. But anyway, so last thing, and then we'll stop the lesson here. So for the future perfect continuous and the future perfect, okay, so that one is also this. It's the same as the other two examples, basically. So no, let me not use that. Let's say by noon. Let's put in an explicit time. By noon. Okay. So we'll have cut and we'll have been cutting. So this one is the present. This one is the first one is the present. I'm sorry. The first one is the future simple. The second one is the future. I'm sorry. The first one is the future perfect. I'm getting confused. The first one is the future perfect, and the second one is the future perfect continuous. So the difference here is that this action right here means that by noon, I will have cut the vegetables, but I may or may not keep cutting. So whereas this one, it's like may keep cutting vegetables. So by noon, Oh God, well, that's okay. That's okay. So the first one means that you will have cut the vegetables by noon. So at noon, you're probably going to stop. It's a action in the future, but it starts from the present and leads up to that point in the future, which is noon. By noon, like say tomorrow, I will have cut the vegetables, and I may not keep cutting. So it's like the first one implies that you may not keep cutting, but the second one implies that the continuation of cutting is possible. So the first one is like, okay, I might keep cutting vegetables. Whereas the second one is like, I might not. But the second one, no, I'm sorry. The first one is like, I might not. But the second one is like, I'm cutting the vegetables. I will have cut them, and I'm probably going to keep cutting them. So actually, why don't I just rephrase it like this to make things less confusing? Okay, so the first one has the possibility that it makes it sound more likely that you're not going to keep cutting the vegetables, but the second one, did I just say the first or the second? I'm confusing myself. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. Okay, so the first example here, the future perfect, has the implication that you might not keep cutting the vegetables. But the second example here, the future perfect continuous, implies that you might keep cutting the vegetables. So the second one makes it more likely that you'll keep performing an action. So that's the difference between the perfect continuous, and the perfect by itself. So it's no different from the other examples before. It's really the same thing, but here you just have a future tense instead of a past tense or a present tense. So when you use the perfect continuous in any of these tenses, present, past, and future, you're implying that the action might still keep going, or might have still kept going if it's in the past. Whereas the future perfect is like, okay, I have an action here, but I might not keep doing it. But there are times where you could actually use either. Like in this example, you could actually use either more or less to mean that you might keep cutting. But if you use the second one, that's a stronger emphasis on the continuation. But yeah, there are times you could actually mix up the aspects a bit. Like in this manner, you could use them interchangeably, and it would be overall the same in meaning. So you could actually use the future perfect and the future perfect continuous interchangeably in some contexts. But when you use the future perfect continuous, you're implying that the action may still continue. It's a stronger emphasis, I should say, compared to the first one where it's like, I might continue, I might not. Whereas the second one means, I might keep going. So if that makes sense. So I should say that sometimes these two are interchangeable. Sometimes, oops. It's sometimes these two are interchangeable. Sometimes I should say these two combinations. And it's really any tense, really. So past, present, future. So sometimes these two combinations, that is perfect and perfect continuous. So let me just make this clear. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Both seem pretty similar in meaning, though. But that's what I'm trying to say here. Sometimes these two are interchangeable, but there are times where you could probably stick to one form and that would have a slightly stronger effect, like on what meaning you want to convey. But again, like there are times where you could use either and it really wouldn't matter. And it's not really just English that's like this. In Spanish, sometimes you can just swap the present simple and the present continuous. Like and it would mean the same thing. Like to provide an example, like you could say, ¿Qué haces? Which essentially means what are you doing? But notice how they're using notice how this verb here, haces, is the present simple. So you could also say something like ¿Qué estás haciendo? So really, it's like here, this is the present simple of the verb hacer, which means to do. So, ¿qué haces? So, ¿qué haces tú? What are you doing? Versus ¿qué estás haciendo? Which is present progressive or present simple continuous. So here, people use these interchangeably to mean, they both mean what do you do, but it's like the second one just places a stronger emphasis on the fact that the action is ongoing, but you could use either one and it wouldn't matter. And people would reply like, say, dibujando, like drawing something, dibujando algo, like drawing something. And and because it's, and they would respond with the, this verb here, dibujando, which is like drawing, but like an ing form for Spanish. They would just say something like that because either way, it's a progressive meaning. So people would understand what you mean either way. It's just that it's just that like, it's a slight difference in meaning, but they're the same. So it's like that in Spanish. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about the matter. I can't think of anything else to say. But basically, to recap, the simple aspect talks about, let me erase all this. So we have a simple aspect, perfect aspect, a continuous aspect, or progressive, and then perfect, continuous, or progressive. The second one, I'm sorry, the last one is really just a combination of the second two, the second and third. So, but I decided to list it here because even though it's a combination, it's still a separate category in a sense. So the simple aspect is used when you want to talk about actions that take place at a single point in time, like this. The perfect aspect is used when you want to talk about actions that took place, started from one point in time and lead up to another point in time. And they could be past, present, or future. It doesn't matter. The continuous aspect is like an action that is similar to the simple aspect, but instead it's not implied to take place at one point in time. It's implied to take place before and after that point. Like it's an ongoing process, something that's in progress. And let me just fix this so that and then this one. And then you have this one. And then you have this one, where this one might be a bit hard to draw. It's kind of like this. This one's kind of hard to draw, so forgive me. So with the perfect continuous progressive aspect, which is like a combination of the two, it's like this, basically. So, yeah, let me draw that. Oops, no. Oh, I could just use this. I'm so stupid. Oh, well, that's okay. Well, you can't change the size, though. That's okay. I don't think you can anyway. So the perfect continuous progressive aspect implies that an action started at one point and led up to another, but it was also ongoing. So it wasn't an action that it was an action that was implied to be like, it's hard to explain, but it's essentially a combination of the second and the third aspects. So it's like you have an action that's in progress, but it wasn't an action that took place at at a certain point in time. It started at one point and ended at another point, or led up to another point, I should say. But it was also ongoing. So it's hard to explain, but that's really the difference between all four. Because like I have an idea of it in my head, but it's kind of hard to put it on in words or on paper. But that's just a recap. And of course, if you guys want to, examples, you have to like look back through the video, because I've pretty much already covered, pretty much provide all the examples I could. But let me put something here. So let me put some examples here, and then that'll be it. I will mail no, let me not use the perfect, the future. Let me go here. Hold up. Okay, so we have two here. So, oh, sorry. I was thinking about something else. Okay, so oh, ew. Let me not use that. And then this one can be I and then no, actually, I don't like this example. Let's just fix this. This is not a good example. Okay, I worked on the newspaper. Okay. So here we have past simple, past perfect, past perfect past continuous, and past perfect continuous. Okay, so The first one is like, I worked on the news. Actually, let me fix that a bit. Okay, there. So at a single point in time, you worked on the newspaper. That's the past simple. Past perfect would be, I had worked on the newspaper when you checked on me. So I started working at the newspaper, on the newspaper in the past, and then that led up to a certain point here in the past, another point in the past, you know, when you checked on me. That was that second point in the past. Okay. The third one is, I was working on a newspaper earlier, but that was in progress. Like I was in the middle of working on the newspaper. So it didn't take place at it didn't take place like at a single point in time in an instant like this. Well, not so much in an instant, but like here, this implies that, you know, this action was in progress, like it was ongoing. It could have been completed, or it could have been completed, or it could have been incomplete. But the difference here is that it implies a lengthy process here compared to this one, where it's like, I worked on a newspaper yesterday, but this one is like, I was working on a newspaper earlier. So it implies like a longer, lengthier action, if that makes sense. And this one is like, I had been working on the newspaper by noon. So you started working on it in the past, and then that led up to another point in the past, which is noon in this instant. So you have one point in the past here, another point in the past here, which in this case would be noon. But it's an ongoing process. It's a lengthy process. It was implied to be a lengthy process. And it may still keep going. So it was an ongoing process. It was, I'm trying to think how to, and basically what separates this one from this one is that, see how I had the boxes like right outside the edges? The box here, I'm sorry, the box right outside the edges. Well, what I meant to by that is to show that this part here means that the action may still continue. And maybe I should not draw it like that. No, actually, I think it's okay. But yeah, here, this action may still continue. Whereas here, this action is not, it's probably not going to continue. That's basically the difference between the two. That's the best way I could explain it. And it's really the same thing here. The action is not going to keep going. The action may still keep going. So, but here you just have the simple aspect. So you don't have an event that starts at one point and leads up to another. But that's the best way I could explain everything. And this is just the past example, the past tense. This is just the past tense. This logic also works for the present and the future. But yeah, I think that's it. That's really all I can say about all the tenses, and I'm getting kind of tired, and I think that this lesson has gone on long enough, but glad everyone understood. I mean, and if you didn't, it was just expose yourself to English. It's, you know, it's not, I'm not going to say that these are easy to understand even after a lesson, but for some people may get it, others may not. But in any case, oops, I don't want to save that. You know what? Actually, I'm glad I saved it. Okay. Yeah, it's essentially, it's a kind of feel thing. You're right. So, as a closing note, don't worry if you don't understand all the tenses and aspects. Just focus on listening Just focus on listening to English that you can understand. The tenses and aspects with enough context and input. Okay, so as a closing note, don't worry if you don't understand all the tenses and aspects of the English verbal system. Just focus on listening to English that you can understand. The tenses and aspects will eventually make sense with enough context and input. So basically, don't sweat it if you can't outright explain the logic or if you don't just understand the logic, period. Eventually, you will understand. Just listen to as much English as you can and everything will just make sense in due time. That's just how language learning works. That's how we learn. Okay. But anyway, I'm glad that you both enjoyed, well, everyone who came to the lesson. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's kind of a feel thingy. It takes time to understand. And eventually I'll try to see if I can do transitive and intransitive verbs because that's a good topic. But before I do that, I have to talk about direct objects and indirect objects, and it's going to take a while to get to that. Actually, it's probably not going to take very long. I'll have to see what my lesson plan will be, but I'm glad you all enjoyed that. So next time I'll do pronoun cases, and then I'm probably going to do, I'm actually thinking about having a class on curse words. I don't know. I saw someone else doing it, like English, another English teacher doing it. So I'm like, what if I do that? I mean, by making sure that's rated, of course. Because I don't know. I just feel like if I explained it, it would be kind of interesting. Because she explained it from a British English perspective, so I felt like explaining it from an American English perspective. I know that that there are probably videos out there that explain curse words, but I just want to provide my own take on them. But of course, maybe not. But you could have a class on. I could have a class on puns, sure. Idioms, even other parts of speech. Really, I could have a class on a lot of things, or active passive speech. Yeah, too many things. We're just gonna have to take it one at a time. I don't want to get ahead of myself, and I don't want anyone else to either. But I guess for now, you know what? I guess for now I'll do pronoun case and then transitive and intransitive verbs. I'll just do that. Actually, no. I'll do Actually, no. I'll do pronoun case, and then I'll do uh, direct objects and indirect objects, and then I'll do transitive verbs. So I'll do it that way. So it'll be like 3 lessons from now. Okay, but anyway, thank you all for watching that. Thank you, Trax, for your comments and feedback and good questions. You asked some really good questions, and other people did too. Thank you, PS, for coming. Thank you both. Thank you, everyone else who came. Yeah. And again, don't worry, don't sweat the tenses, just eventually that will make sense to you. Like, because for me with Spanish, it took me a while for the imperfect to make sense. It just has to click. Eventually it will click. But anyway, yeah, it's good to engage while learning. That makes the experience pretty interesting. But yeah, now I am but yeah, I hope everyone engages because that's good. Like I learn things, you learn things, we all make the lesson interesting. But anyway, I must go because I'm tired and I want to eat something. Well, not really. I don't know. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching that lesson. And until then, next time, well, tomorrow afternoon, like 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, somewhere. You just check the Discord server for information. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.